Welcome to the Sisterhood of Sweat. I am here today with Tricia Nelson. Tricia Nelson lost 50 pounds by identifying and healing the underlying causes of her emotional eating. Tricia has spent over 30 years researching the hidden causes of food addiction. Tricia is an emotional eating expert and author of the #1 best-selling book, Heal Your Hunger: 7 Simple Steps to End Emotional Eating Now. She is also the host of the popular podcast, The Heal Your Hunger Show. Tricia is a TEDx speaker, a highly regarded coach, and has been featured on The List, NBC, CBS, KTLA, Fox, and Discovery Health. Today, we talked about why comfort foods are so comforting, how to differentiate between physical and emotional hunger, why 98% of diets fail, how to deal with obsessive food thoughts or obsessive exercise, obsessive anything, 3 hidden causes of emotional eating and how to heal them, the #1 weight loss mistake you should never make, how to manage stress before it drives you to the kitchen or binging. We also talked about how food could be an escape. You're escaping from something, you're punishing yourself. So many things about food, or just in general, things that we might use to escape our life, and how we need to start focusing on self-care, self-love. How is our actual life? How can we be kinder to ourselves? And so much more. This was probably the best I have seen anyone talk on this subject, and I've had several emotional eating experts on. So I think you're really going to enjoy this. Be sure to tune in, take notes, and again, if you want Tricia's book, go to, I believe, healyourhunger.com is the website. Without further ado, let's dive into this episode with Tricia Nelson. I am so excited to welcome Tricia Nelson to the Sisterhood of Sweat today. Welcome, Tricia.
Thanks so much for having me, Linda. I'm so happy to be here.
Well, you are amazing. First of all, I don't have anybody that isn't amazing on my show.
Of course not.
And I really am excited to dive into this topic for all of the listeners today. Being a health advocate, a mom of 3, and someone that has done fitness competitions and, went to nutrition school, and I've probably studied every diet under the sun. I've been doing this since I was 21, and I'll be 60 in September.
Get out of town.
Yeah. And so I am very excited to talk about our topic today, your book, Healing Your Hunger, for everyone out there that's ever wondered, why can't I just stick to it? Or they know they're emotionally eating, but they don't know how to put the brakes on. I am very excited about this. So I just want to start, first of all, letting the listeners get to know you a little bit, and how you went from being, obsessive compulsive about food, to losing 50 pounds and becoming an author and having this huge movement and helping everyone heal their hunger.
Oh, thank you for that and for having me on your show. I love the work that you do with women. Yeah, I was an emotional eater. I mean, that's really how this all started. Is I was, obsessed with food, and I love to eat. I love to cook. I love to serve it to other people, go out to dinner, like anything of the food. I was all about it. And what I didn't like, however, was gaining weight. And I had this tummy on me, and I would scrunch up, the fat on my stomach in my hands, and I'd imagine cutting it off like you cut fat off the side of a steak. And it was crazy. And I thought about getting some disease where I'd automatically lose weight without dieting. Because basically, no matter what diet I tried, I always put the weight back on. Like I'd lose weight and then I'd gain it right back. And so I did this yo-yo thing over and over. And I did get so exhausted from that and demoralized. It's so embarrassing. It's like you think you arrived, and then before you know it, you turn around and you can't fit into those skinny jeans anymore. So I was very frustrated. And I think at some point I just thought, I can't do this pattern. I was by age 21, I was 50 pounds overweight. And I thought, I can't do this pattern, anymore because it's so unhealthy. And yet, what do? Like diet and exercise is what everybody says you should do, but it wasn't working for me because I was obsessed with food. Like I could diet, when you go on a diet, you're like, you have the new diet syndrome. You're like, woohoo, we're doing it, and you work out and you just look great and everybody's complimenting you and you're starting to fit in some of those clothes that are, in the back of your closet. So it feels good for a while, but then after some time, my point was like 2 weeks or so, it starts getting hard. And you're like, oh my God, like I just want chocolate, And so you start obsessing about your favorite food and going down
Everybody's
the
ears
aisles.
perked up right then.
And so it's no longer all exciting and fun. It gets hard and grueling. And if it's hard and grueling long enough, you're like, screw it. Like I'm going to go eat. And then of course, then you fall down the rabbit hole and you keep eating and you don't pull yourself back up. And before you know it, the pounds are back on. So that was my pattern over and over. And what broke that for me was learning that I was an emotional eater and that it wasn't just that I liked food. Because when I first heard the words emotional eating, I thought, well, that's not me. I just like food. Like I like food, which is true. I do like food, but there was more to it. I used food for emotional reasons. And when I started to deal with that, go to that level instead of the symptom of food and weight, when I started to go deeper and deal with the emotions, deal with the stress that I was always under, that I kind of put myself in oftentimes, when I started really pulling that apart and addressing that, new self-care habits, everything turned around for me and I was able to lose the weight and keep it off. And it was a life changer for me. So that was many years ago. I'm no spring chicken. I'm almost 55. So
well, you look great. I would never guess that.
Back at you. So so that was literally 30 years ago. And I basically started to, after I really healed, I started working with my mentor to help others. And that's all I've done my whole adult life, is really try to get to the bottom of this and figure it out and create a system so other people didn't have to take so long and they could be right on it and heal from emotional eating. And if somebody isn't emotionally eating, the weight comes off without trying to lose weight. Like that's the beautiful thing, is so much of the excess weight is that anxious eating, that nibbling, that snacking, that sitting, that unconscious eating, sitting in front of the TV. So if you eliminate that, it's the weight loss just happens. So that's what I love about it, is people can get off the diet track. So that's what happened for me. And then Heal Your Hunger came 5 years ago as an online effort to reach women around the globe. And I have programs that take them through my step-by-step system, and my podcast, my book, my TEDx talk. It's all come after that.
I love that so much. And I love that we're on the same mission.
Yes.
And the Healing Your Hunger, that is such a great title for people out there that can't put the brakes on. And as my one client said to ask you today, how do I stop this?
Yeah. Yeah.
I said that could be a title for a book.
Right.
But how in the world what are some tips today? What are people hungry for? First of all, what do you think they're hungry for? And how could they replace the hunger that they're using food for with, maybe I'm hungry for connection, or I'm hungry for a nap?
Yeah. Well, that is the deeper hunger, right? Like we do crave connection. I find as emotional eaters, We're very disconnected. We're in our heads all the time. You know, we're super obsessed with food. Like I just thought about food 24/7. So even though I was with people, I wasn't really present because I was thinking when I'm going to get my next fix, you know, or when I'm going to get done with these people so I can really eat how I want to eat, you know, and it just consumes so much of our thought life. So it's hard to be present with people. It's hard to feel peaceful, you know, and present when you're off, you know, obsessing about food and about weight. How do I look? What are they judging me? You know, my pants are too tight. You know, I've got muffin top. It's like, it goes on and on, all these thoughts, you know? So my experience is you really need to change your paradigm. Okay. So it's not like one tip here, one tip there, because it's a systemic issue. You know, it runs deeper. So I think the first place to start, Linda, is to, instead of thinking about what food is doing to us, which we know, you know, carbs and sugar and fat and, you know, all these things, we gain weight really easily, get cellulite, you know, get zits, whatever. Instead of thinking about what these foods are doing to us, I want people to shift and think about what the food is doing for us, because that's a good place to start identifying that it is an emotional issue. You know, because so many people are like, wait, I just like food, and exactly how I thought at first. So let me give you the Pep test first. And Pep is an acronym. I think you read this in my book. So Pep is an acronym. And the PEP, the first P stands for painkiller. So we use food, we snack and nibble and binge to kill pain, kill emotional pain, to let's say, to soften the edges of life. Okay, because life is not easy.
It's an escape, right?
Oh, well, that's the E. That's the E in Pep is an escape.
Oh, I didn't see that. Okay.
Yeah. So yes, I mean they're similar, painkiller and escape, but the P is a painkiller because we have emotions. See, as emotional eaters, if we've been chronically struggling with food and weight for a long time, we're probably an emotional eater. And people can literally take a quiz on my website and find out if they're an emotional eater or even a food addict. It's a free quiz that they can take, and that'll tell them, it literally gives them a personalized score. But the point is, we have been running from our emotions for a long time. Like we've been trying to soften the edges of life for a long time because it's not easy to feel our feelings. And I know for myself at a young age, I was like, the feelings, they're for the birds. Like I don't want to feel uncomfortable. So I was always numbing myself out. I was using food as a painkiller. Okay, E stands for escape, which is, you know, as emotional eaters, see, we don't just overeat, we have a whole personality profile. So as emotional eaters, we have very busy minds, okay? We tend to overthink everything and worry a lot, okay? So fear is a big part of our makeup, like just worrying, being anxious, you know, kind of awfulizing the worst case scenario, what might happen. So when you live this way, like your head is so busy all the time, it's exhausting, you know? And so my experience is, as emotional eaters, we tend to eat to escape our minds. Like we want to check out from how busy our mind is and how tiring it is to think to overthink all the time, those racing minds, you know. And I used to get my binge foods and sit in front of the TV, and then I just check out, like I'd be gone, you know, and I needed that escape. So the last letter in PEP, P, again, it stands for punishment, which seems counterintuitive because we tend to think of food as our reward. Like, oh, I've worked so hard this week, I'm gonna get my favorite, you know, cupcake and ice cream and sit in front of the TV. So it's a reward at the outset. But if you play it, you know, kind of play the tape forward, and you end up, you know, the cupcake and ice cream might not be enough. You need it salty with your sweets. You get some chips, and before you know it, you've had this binge, and then you feel disgusting, and then you're so mad at yourself, like, why did I do that? What was I thinking? Like, I was supposed to stop at the cupcake, you know? And so then you feel bad, and then, you know, the next day you're like, I feel gross, I'm gonna isolate, I'm not going out with my girlfriends, like I'm bloated, my face is bloated. So it ends up being a punishment. Like, it's not a reward at all. And so for those who eat that way, it's, you know, my experience is, we're not only overeaters, we're overfeelers, and we feel guilty about everything. We're super hard on ourselves. And so,
Oh, yeah.
right? And so food is a
Mhm.
way to beat ourselves up, and it works. It
Oh
works. Like
my gosh.
it's like an ass kicking, And so yeah, so the painkiller, escape, and punishment, PEP, this is a good place to start to stop, to kind of transition from, oh, I just like food, that's all there is to it, nothing emotional there, to start, my experience is, once you hear this information, you can't unhear it. So my experience is, you're going to start noticing, wow, I'm going to the refrigerator, but I'm not really hungry. What's going on? And that's an important question to ask. What's really going on? Is there something hard that I just don't want to deal with? Or am I feeling bad about something? And so we start noticing our thoughts, because it starts with our thoughts, and our thoughts kind of create our emotions. So that's a good place to start, in my experience, just to make the connection. Because again, emotional eating, it's kind of a new concept. It's not a new thing we're doing, but it's a new idea, and we're not used to looking for that. So that's a great place to start. Another thing that's really important is that we start doing something about our stress. Now, emotional eaters, as I said, we're overthinkers. We're also overdoers. Okay. So we are running circles around everybody, and we're so proud of our accomplishments. Like, everybody's like, look at you, you're so amazing, you're doing so much. And that kind of feeds our ego. We get little atta girls from people, and it makes us feel good, but it comes at a price, and the price is, we have no time for ourselves. We're always doing for others. We're stressed out. We feel kind of resentful because other people aren't pulling their weight, because they don't have to, because we're doing it for them. Right. And
Oh
so
my gosh. Yeah, for sure. I know this is eye-opening and probably a little painful for people listening.
yeah,
Listeners right now are like really
I'm
tuning
kind of
in to what
kind
you're
of
saying.
pulling some covers here.
Yeah.
So, but this is where we have to look at, like, just like, what's the next diet? Let me try keto now. Let me try intermittent fasting. It's like, why don't we try looking at our lives and how we've set up our lives for failure, like for stress, because a lot of the stress is self-created, which is good news, actually, because if we created
Because
it,
we can
we can,
uncreate it.
yes, we can change that picture, and only we can do it, right? Nobody else can take things off our calendar. Nobody else can say, oh, time out, I need a boundary on my time. Like, I need time for me. Nobody can do that for us. We have to say, yo, it's time for me to take some time for myself, and that's so important. And I often say to my clients, it's really not an eating problem, it's a living problem, and so this
I love that.
overdoing.
It's so, I mean, everything you're saying, I feel like that could have been a soundbite. It's not an eating problem, it's a living problem.
It's the
And we
truth.
don't want to look at the obvious thing. And I love what you're saying so much about the escape, it being an escape. We're trying
Yeah.
to escape our life.
Yeah. So, some other things that we're really good at. I have a thing in my book called The Anatomy of the Emotional Eater. Okay. It's kind of a play on words, the anatomy of the emotional eater. Well, this is 24 personality traits that make up the emotional eater's personality. And why this is so important is, again, because we are causing a lot of the stress that we stress eat over. So we need to stop creating that stress. And so one of the top traits of an emotional eater is people pleasing.
Oh
Okay.
my gosh.
So
Oh my
we're,
gosh.
yes. So we're major people pleasers because we want the atta girls. We want people to be happy with us. We can't stand it when people are mad at us. We say yes to everything. But we can't do that and not be stressed out, or feel overextended or overwhelmed. And what do we do when we feel overextended, overwhelmed? We pick up quick, snacky foods. Like, we're on the run. We don't even have time to make a healthy meal. So we're just stopping at the store, grabbing something, eating it in the car. Well, what does that do? That makes us gain weight because we're eating crappy food with no nutritional value, right? With high calories. And doesn't even fill us. So this has to change, so again, we have to change our life, more than our food, because it makes a big difference. Obviously the food, I'm sort of turning the whole system on its head here. Instead of losing weight from the outside in, we have to lose weight from the inside out. How am I living? How can I start living differently? So it's so important that we tune into this stuff.
I love that. You shed the negative thoughts, you shed all the limited beliefs and the stories that you're telling yourself, and so many things I recognize it in all of my clients before they shed the weight. It's about shedding the negative mindset or the things that keep us stuck. And when I was saying earlier about escaping to food, what is your remedy for people that want to escape their life? Because this comes up a lot with clients where they, I even think pornography is an escape from your real life, and that we do it in all sorts of ways. Maybe we over exercise, or it could be you're not overeating, but you're over exercising or over restricting. Could you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, my experience is, I as an emotional eater / food addict, I took it, I mentioned that quiz earlier. That quiz really puts you on the spectrum of emotional eating. So the low end is emotional eating. We all go overboard now and then. I think we're hardwired to get comfort from food, carby foods, it sort of gives us that serotonin hit. So low end is emotional eating. High end is food addiction. Okay. So, I was addicted to food. All right. Which means I had big binges and felt awful and gained weight and ate in spite of, consequences. That's really where definition as addict is somebody who does the behavior that causes the negative consequences, even though it's going to do that. Like you do it anyway, right? And you have trouble stopping. Okay, that was me, classic addict. But when you have any addictive habit, like why stop at one? Okay, so like you like you are addicted to lots of things. Like you have an addictive personality,
right?
And part of that, part of
drinking,
addiction,
or even drinking, right?
Anything, porn, drinking, shopping, right? Shopping online, ordering.
Let's hit it on the head today.
Come on, like there's so many ways to be checked out. Okay. And the thing is, even obsessive thinking is an escape. Okay. So when I'm like obsessed with my body and measuring and like, when I used to lose weight on my yo-yo downward spiral, decline, I'd try on like all these different clothes because I'd start being able to fit my clothes. I'd wear like 3 outfits a day. Like I just couldn't get enough of the fact that I fit in my cute clothes, so I was obsessive, and then shopping for new clothes. So, and then not being able to wear them a month later because I gained weight. But the point is, the obsession of the mind is part of the addiction. It's not like I'm eating 24/7. You couldn't eat for 24 hours straight. So you have your eating bouts, and in between you're obsessed. You're thinking about your weight, about how much you weigh, about what you just did to yourself, about how to get rid of it so it doesn't put on pounds, right? So your butt doesn't grow. It's like, how to work it off, how many calories we need to burn, how many calories we ate, and how many we need to burn. It's like a merry-go-round, and that constant obsession is an escape in and of itself. Okay, so that, anytime we're obsessed with anything, it's taking us out of our present. It's like we're checked out. We're totally checked out. That's why this obsession, an addictive habit, it basically takes us away from our relationships. I used to literally be with people I loved, but couldn't wait to get out of their, for them to leave or go to sleep so I could eat, and it felt so bad to me to wish for somebody I love to get lost. It's like an awful feeling, but that's how I was when I was in the grips of this addiction. So point is, obsession about anything is addictive thinking, if you will. It's part of the addictive personality where we're just checked out. We don't want to be present, and so, it begs the question, like, what's going on? Like, what are you trying to escape from? And it's always uncomfortable emotions, but that's not that's not the beginning and end of it. It's like, why do we have those uncomfortable emotions? What's going on? What needs to be fixed? If we're constantly checked out, we're not addressing the problems at hand. Life isn't easy. Relationships aren't easy. There's pain. What's painful and where can I address that? And so, instead of thinking about the next new diet or the next way to shave off pounds, it's like, let's get real. Let's deal with the real stuff.
How can we help people today to deal with obsessive food thoughts?
Yeah, well, my experience is we have to feel safe. People might be like, oh, deal with the underlying causes, I guess I have to go to therapy. But my experience is that's not true. Okay. So you don't need 20 years of therapy to heal emotional eating. Good news, right? So
Right.
my experience is I have clients within 90 days who are off the diet roller coaster ride. Okay. I mean, within weeks, they're off the diet roller coaster ride. And the way we do that, is basically, again, getting off the diet track. That is so self-defeating to be on the diet track. So get off the diet track and start, instead of thinking about how we can lose weight, like I really try to get people literally off of weighing themselves, because that's part of the obsession too. And so let's transition to self-care. Okay. So I'm all about people starting their day, putting money in their spiritual bank account. Okay. So we can't just clear out all the carbs and sugar and expect to be okay. Okay. Again, works for a couple of weeks until you start craving those things. We have to replace it. And you said this early on, we have to replace it with healthier habits. If food was supporting us, as a painkiller, an escape, and a punishment, and we take it away, it's like we need new tools for dealing with life. We need new tools. So things that can fill our cup, things that can nourish us at a deeper level, like meditation and prayer and spiritual reading and just a walk in nature, movement exercises, things that can get us still and quiet and centered. We're so on the run from ourselves.
Oh
We
my
are,
gosh, yeah.
right? We're busy, don't want to be with ourselves. And so meditation is a terrifying idea for somebody, who's an emotional eater, because it's like, what? Sit down and shut up? I couldn't possibly do that. So we work our way into it. But the point is, we have to have replacement. We have to nourish our souls. We are hungry for connection. We are hungry for depth, for real conversations, for real connection, for a spiritual, relationship. And so we got to work on it. We got to work on those tools. And so starting the day with some kind of morning routine that can help you be with yourself and, and get some spiritual juju. Okay. Like whatever that is for somebody, it's, it doesn't have to be religion. It's just something that can help you feel nourished and supported.
You just said it. The nourished and supported. I think a lot of women out there are doing it all themselves, and they fall into the syndrome of what you said earlier, where they're mad because somebody is not helping them, but they're doing it all already. And it's like this vicious cycle, and they're not nourishing themselves, and they're not getting support, and they feel alone. And they're looking for comfort. That is a word I've heard a lot. I just want some comfort. Why do you think comfort foods are so comforting?
Well, because we are lacking that comfort, because we are doing as women, we do for others, right? Of all kinds, parents to kids, to work, to spouse. It's like we're always giving. And we are not good at giving to ourselves. We are not good at taking time for ourselves. And that's a lot of what I train people to do. It's like, hey, boundaries on your time. Stop saying yes to everything. Stop people pleasing because it's not paying off, right? It's making you like feel worse, not better. So it's really, taking time for ourselves. My experience is it's not easy to do. And it's hard to do alone because your head will mess with you and say, oh, you're being selfish. Oh, you're being selfish to take time for yourself. You're being selfish to say no to that next request, or say you can't chair the committee or can't run the group or whatever. And it's like, we need support from other women. In my, world, it's other emotional eaters, because emotional eaters have a certain kind of personality. So when you're in community with other emotional eaters, you work, you make faster progress. But we have to be around people who are in support of us taking care of ourselves, because otherwise we'll play tricks on ourselves and we'll feel guilty. We'll feel like we're selfish. Other people might guilt trip us, and we've got to say enough is enough. Like it's just that, very, what is that saying? Putting your oxygen mask on first. It's trite, but it's true.
Yeah.
You have to put your oxygen mask on first. And really think about it. When we do that, when we take care of ourselves first, we're just more pleasant to be around. When we're stressed out and all our time is used up, I mean, I know for myself, I can get really bitchy in those times. And then people aren't getting the best version of me. I don't want that.
Not at all.
Yeah. So it's like, if we truly want to give to other people, if it's about giving, take care of yourself first, and you'll have so much more to give to other people because you filled your cup first, So it's really, oh my gosh, it's so, it's easy to talk about, not so easy to do. So the community support is vital. Trying to do this on your own, trying to turn around a ship that's been going in one direction for 40 years. Yeah, we got to turn that baby around, and we do it with support. We do it with encouragement, and so that's a great way to start, is just start with that morning routine. But there's other things that we need to do. We need to clear out those emotions that have been plaguing us. We need to kind of have writing is a really useful tool as well, just sort of like offloading negative emotions so they don't get to us.
Getting it off of your mind and out of your brain, and so you don't stuff it all down. I mean, when you write it, it just comes pouring out onto the pages, and it paints a picture and a story, and it makes things, I think, much more clear to us versus just carrying all this stuff in our brain. Why do you think that I loved a lot of the statistics in the beginning of your book, that 45 million people are on a diet at all times, and 70% of people are obese. You were just going into all these statistics, and 98% of diets are failing. So why do you think that 98% of diets are failing and that diets don't work?
Well, it's just a very sad statistic. There was a study just a couple years ago of 20,000 people on one of 14 popular diets. The Weight Watchers and the whatever else, Jenny Craig, and I don't know what other ones.
Every fat out there.
Yeah, exactly.
A hot dog diet.
So 20,000 of the most popular 14 diets. So people are on the diets. Do you know that after a year, virtually nobody kept off the weight that they'd lost? Okay. So it was, dismal statistics. It just is. There's over, for my TEDx talk, I pulled over 20 studies with that general same theme, that the diets aren't working. And yet we're so seduced by them, this quick fix mentality. We're at fault because we're buying in, we're buying into the idea that there's a quick fix, and there is not. It has to happen from the inside out. Everybody can lose weight. Like, we've all done it. but can you keep it off? Like we don't want to keep yo-yoing. It's not healthy, and it's embarrassing when you put the weight back on. So, it's sort of like stop, let's stop and take a whole new tack. And the nice thing is there is a different way to go about it. A lot of people don't know they have an option besides going on another diet, but it's really hard to convince people, until they're just sick of their own patterns, that diets aren't going to get them where they need to go.
Well, first of all, I'm going to ask this. How do we differentiate between physical and emotional hunger?
Yeah, they feel so much alike. I even get tricked sometimes. Like I'll be sitting at my computer working and I'll be like, "Ah, I'm so hungry." And then I'll stop and I'll be like, really? And the reason why I know it's not true, is if it's like 10 o'clock in the morning. So I do something and I recommend to people, the only real diet advice or nutrition, not even nutrition, but just kind of way of eating that I recommend, because I'm not a nutritionist. And, women aren't stupid. If they've been around the block a few times, they know that salads are healthier than pizza or hot dogs, right? So,
Yeah,
we're not dumb.
100%.
So it's not like we need more information to know that,
Greens are good for you.
yeah, greens and things from the earth are probably going to be healthier than processed foods at 7-Eleven. So basically that's not the problem. The problem is following through on what we know, and so what I recommend, the only nutrition advice I recommend to people, or meal advice, is eating 3 meals with nothing in between. I call it 3-meal magic. And it is, it's so simple. You could trip over it because we kind of grew up this way. And then we lost sight of that. And so I bring women back to 3 meals with nothing in between. And that in and of itself is a game changer, because it's what's in between that's mostly packing on the pounds, right? The snacky foods, the nuts, the chocolates, the candies, the chips. Like that's where it gets us into trouble. So just doing the 3 meals is amazing. But for me, I've been doing it for 30 years and I love it, because at 10 o'clock in the morning, when I'm trying to convince myself I should go eat something, I'm like, wait, hold on there. You had an amazing breakfast at 8. You're probably not starving like you're trying to tell yourself you are. And then I can kind of talk to that little girl who thinks she needs to eat now, because it's a very ingrained pattern. When we've used food for so long for other things besides nutrition and actual physical need, it's just such an ingrained habit. So I have to kind of talk to her and say, you ate a great breakfast. You can probably wait 2 or 3 more hours for lunch. And it just keeps it clean. It keeps the boundaries clean. And it also helps a person see how emotional their choices are. And so when I know now, okay, oh yeah, we can wait for lunch, that's fine. Then I have to go the next step and say, what's really going on? Painkiller, escape, punishment. What's going on? Mm-hmm. It's usually something I don't want to deal with, a phone call I don't want to make. I'm great at procrastinating out of fear. So I have to kind of look at, why am I using food as a distraction, And so that's how we can differentiate. If you're on a regular plan of eating, now if you're doing fasting, you're all over the place, and it might be physical, but it might be emotional, but you don't really know because you haven't eaten for 16 hours. So it's a little harder to tell. That's why I like the regularity and the simplicity of just the 3 meals. And if you want to put 12 hours between your dinner and breakfast and get the intermittent fasting, benefits, then I do that. I try to put 12 hours between my dinner and my breakfast, but I don't want to go too long because I don't want to start losing sight of what's going on inside of me.
And I just thought it was so interesting, backing up just a little to what you said about you're not a nutritionist, but like most women are pretty smart. They know they need to eat their greens and and exercise and get their sleep and all that. And I remember being at Procter and Gamble, I was getting ready to speak, and I had a canned speech already. I mean, a health expert, of course. And I just thought, I'm going to just throw all that out. I don't want to talk about healthy greens today and doing your yoga. I want to talk to you about your life and your habits and
Good for you.
what's fueling you. And it was like one of my best talks ever. And
Awesome.
I just love like getting into the nitty gritty of what makes everyone tick, why we're here, why like sometimes you're not doing something that makes you happy, and you might be angry and stuffing resentment and all of these things, and you think you're hiding all of that. But I just got to tell you, it just comes out. It comes out in different ways. It could come out in emotional eating. It could come out in, like what you said, the binging,
Yeah.
just like over exercising, over restricting.
Yep.
It's really at the end of the day about loving on yourself, creating a life that you love, not one that you want to escape from,
Yes. Amen.
and all of
Amen.
those things. So
Yeah.
I hope everybody is just really getting what you're laying down today, because it's so, so good. I
Thank
want to
you.
ask you, what are the 3 hidden causes? Because I think many times it is hidden to us.
Yeah.
We're not seeing it, of emotional eating, and how can people heal from that today?
Yeah. Well, actually, I already covered that in the PEP. So the
Okay.
painkiller, escape, and punishment, those are things people don't think of. We just think I like chocolate, but it really
Right.
is that deeper, the deeper motivations. But
Right.
I take it even in my book, in my programs, I take it even deeper, which is those personality traits, the people pleasing,
That is probably huge.
the caretaking, the kind of being a busybody and trying to run other people's lives.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
We have some ways that we got to take a look at. We have to put the spotlight on, again, how we're living, because it creates the stress that creates stress eating.
That is so good. So good. What do you think that the number one weight loss mistake is that you should never make?
Well, this would be really kind of radical. But I haven't weighed myself, but probably 5 times in the last 34 years. So I'm here to say that you actually don't need to weigh yourself in order to be thin. Okay. I've been the thin weight for, a healthy weight at,
Yeah.
for over 30 years. And the reason why the scale is so detrimental to us so often is because if you're an emotional eater, and I'll qualify by saying, if you're an emotional eater, what happens is when the scale tells you something you like, right? You're like, woohoo, now I have some wiggle room. I'm going to eat that cake. Okay. Well, that's kind of a setup. Okay. So you just use the scale is a setup to put those pounds you just lost back on. And if the scale tells you something you don't like, and you've been going to the gym all week, you're like, screw it, this doesn't pay off. And you go eat, or you quit going to the gym.
So either way,
Either way, you're screwed. Yeah,
yeah.
it's like if you give the scale the power to make you feel good, you're going to give it the power to make you feel bad. And I don't want to give my power away like that.
So good. Oh, that
I
is
know when my
perfect.
clothes don't fit. Who are we kidding? I know when my
Right.
jeans don't feel so good on my body. So, I have to stop worshiping the scale and asking it how I should feel that day. It's so disempowering, and I want people to really take the focus off that number and put it on self-care. How do I want to feel? And how
Right.
do I feel when I pitch a binge? I feel like crap,
Yeah.
So
And you beat
maybe,
yourself up, and then you
yeah, like
punish yourself, like you said.
yeah, people are always like, oh, I don't want to deprive myself. Well, what are you depriving yourself of? Feeling crappy, feeling stuffed, feeling hungover the next day, having bloat, and inflammation in your body that causes illness. Like, who are we kidding? Like, I want to deprive myself of all those symptoms. Hell yeah. Like, it's not worth it to me. It's not worth it to me to go down that road. People are like, oh, I don't want to feel deprived. That's kind of a scarcity thing that comes from dieting. It's a dieting thing because we
Right.
have
Right.
restricted and been really harsh. But if you change that, to really change the conversation and make it about self-care, like, I want to feel my best. I want to feel like I'm my friend. I don't want to stop beating myself up. You know, I have a conference called I'm hosting called Make Peace with Food. Love your body, love your food, love your life. And it's like, that's what it's about. Like, let's stop the fight. Let's stop the battle. Let's make peace with food and with ourselves. Like that's what we need to do. We need to get on our side for once.
What is your number one tip for helping the listeners today to manage their stress before it drives them into the kitchen, to binging, to reaching for the things that are just over the top, that they know aren't healthy for them?
Yeah, first of all, start in the morning with a morning routine. And then at the end of the day, before you make dinner, take a time out, go to your room, play some soft music, light a candle, meditate if you can meditate. There's cool apps that can do guided meditations, like a Calm app or Insight Timer. Take a time out before you go to the kitchen, because what happens is we've accumulated stress throughout the day. And when we're kind of spinning from stress. And when we walk in the door and we go into the kitchen, it's like we eat to slow the spin. Like we start munching on chips and it slows us down. We start kind of calming down and, oh, we're feeling better. Do that through a healthy thing. Take a bath, take a walk, go into your room, create a ritual, read an inspirational, like a few passages from the Bible or something inspirational that really makes you feel warm and supported, right? So you can slow the spin in a healthy way. And then when you go to the kitchen, you're at a much better place emotionally. You're not stressed out, you're not hyped up, and you can have I always say you'll eat at least 200 calories less for dinner.
I know it, because when you really think back to when you were a kid and playing outside, your parents had to remind you to come in and eat. And it was because you were filling yourself with things you enjoyed. You were playing, you were outside, and we need to get back to more of that, I think, in our lives, and look at what we might be lacking in our actual lives. So this has been so good today. Can you, again, was it healyourhunger.com book? What was it again that for them to get the quiz?
Actually, then go straight to my website, which is healyourhunger.com. So it's HEAL, healyourhunger.com. Take the quiz. It's a 2-minute quiz, free. And that's a great way to get started. And then you can learn about my book and my podcast and other things we've got going on from there.
So perfect. This has been so good. I love the way that you put the topic together, and just the way that you, so like, it was echoing clients that I have. I know, because I hear it. I know that they have this emotional hunger, and just listening to you address it, I know that we helped so many people today. So thank you for coming on the show.
Oh, thanks so much for having me, Linda. It's great to see you. And thanks again for all your wonderful work to support women and getting healthier.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening to this episode with Tricia Nelson on the Sisterhood of Sweat. Bye, everybody.